Hello and welcome to Gamers Without Borders. My name is Barney Banks and I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by the Senior Director for Emergency Response at International Medical Corps, Javid Ali. First things first, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me here. And good to be here.
Well, an important question, but quite a heavy one straight out of the gate. How is International Medical Corps changing the world?
Just to give you a background of what we do, we are international humanitarian organizations, and we work in emergency as well as in conflict setting, no matter where it is, no matter how complicated the situations are. We have quite a long history of working in this sector. So the influence is both at the local level as well as at the global level. First of all, we through our work, we contribute to health and well-being of millions of people, and we provide care to some of the most impoverished populations in the world that are exposed to disaster. This activity also somewhat contributes to reduction in the rate of disease progression and malnutrition, which both of them happen to be two of the most common scenarios that we end up finding ourselves in. And better health contributes to better economic outcomes, and as such, better education in the area. So I would say, our influence is both at the local level as well as at the global level as a, humanitarian response organization.
Well, let's focus on you for a second. Okay, so what's your role at International Medical Corps? Take me on a journey of a typical work day for you.
All right. So I'm by background, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a public health professional, and in my current role, I serve as a senior director for the emergency response unit. The unit itself works with the countries that we are operational in to ensure that we are equally prepared to deal with emergencies and disasters, and we respond efficiently, at the right place at the right time, wherever the disaster strikes. So my typical role, if I give you an example of what I'm currently dealing with, we have a situation in Sudan, as you know, with this conflict that has put, totally disrupted the services in health and all the other aspects of life. We are working with that country very closely to ensure that they have means and mechanisms to deal with the crisis effectively. We are working in Ukraine, which is another conflict-stricken country, and we have a role in supporting them technically and operationally in managing that particular crisis. And similarly, looking at the global landscape, there's a lot that's happening right now. There are about 20 plus countries where we have cholera outbreaks, we have measles outbreaks going on in multiple countries. We have one of the worst hunger crises that's currently erupting in the Horn of Africa. We have programs there. So our role largely is to provide that technical support, that operational support to our field teams to generate decent and evidence-based packages to respond to specific crisis.
Well, International Medical Corps and Gamers Without Borders have been working together now for multiple years. Why is Gamers Without Borders so important to International Medical Corps?
So Gamers Without Borders has been a massive support to our work. They provide us with the necessary funding and flexibility to use those funds wherever we have sudden onset disasters. If we look back at the last 2 years, for instance, the support that Gamers Without Borders provided us, it helped us in protecting our frontline staff with necessary personal protective gear. It helped us to respond to COVID-19 across multiple countries. It also provided an opportunity for us to go out there and provide vaccination for COVID-19 across about 10 different countries. And currently, with the support, we are working in Ethiopia, in Yemen, as well as in Somalia, to manage the impact of this hunger crisis that's currently and rapidly evolving in that area, and to prepare the systems at the local level so that we can protect lives and as well as provide support to people who are in the middle of that crisis. So they have been one of the most frontline supporters of our work, and because of them, people like us manage to go out in the field and do what is necessary during crisis.
Well, Gamers Without Borders every single year plays a different role, I feel, in focusing different areas of humanitarian aid, right? So each year it typically changes. 2021 it was focusing on PPE and medical services, and then last year it was more vaccination distribution. So you would like to know, this year we're particularly focusing on just giving a charitable donation to the charity so that they can focus, so they can channel those resources into areas that need it most. So touching on that, what is International Medical Corps focusing on in 2023? You've already mentioned Sudan. Are there any other areas as well?
There are quite a few areas. So just to give you, a perspective from our side, when we look at the global public health emergency landscape, we see, a number of countries that are prone to both natural and man-made disasters. We see the worst hunger crisis evolving in certain parts of the world. We have seen a tremendous amount of or number of people who are displaced forcibly from their homes. The number has crossed 100 million for the first time in our history, and we have got a lot of conflict hotspots, more so than ever since the Second World War. So, the public health landscape doesn't look that great, and because of the impact of COVID, communities have lost their inherent defense mechanisms to deal with some of those crises, and the health systems have been crippled in a number of countries. So when you look at vaccination rates, for instance, as an indicator of the impact of COVID and other ongoing disasters, it has been the lowest over the last 30 years. So the reason why we cherish our relationship with Gamers Without Borders is because it provides us that flexibility to adapt our programming in accordance with where the crisis is most apparent and much more high in magnitude. So our focus for this year is largely in areas where we see an extreme amount of hunger, particularly in Ethiopia, where and as well as in Somalia and Yemen. The situation in Ethiopia is in Yemen and Ethiopia and Somalia, all these three countries. It's quite similar because we have seen the impact of climate change as well as conflict on the lives of people who are living there. Especially Somalia and Ethiopia have had multiple failed rainy seasons, and because of that, crop production is extremely low. There is conflict which is leading to displacement of individuals, and there's loss of livelihood. So our intention, working with Gamers Without Borders, is to ensure that communities living in those countries have certain mechanisms, and as well as our programs are providing access to those specific communities to be able to access life-saving services. And at the same time, we are trying to enhance the public health systems in those areas so that those countries country programs are able to withstand the shock that they're witnessing right now. So yeah, it's flexibility in operations. It's dealing with crisis where we see the impact being the highest, and it's as well as focusing on one of the most pronounced crisis of our lifetime. So we are very grateful and thankful to Gamers Without Borders to provide us that opportunity and support.
Well, speaking of the gamers themselves, the gamers who compete here at this competition, they all love that they get to compete in something that they love, but then also that all of their efforts go to something that is a good cause. So I'm asking each charity a similar question regarding this. I would like to know if you have a message to the gamers of the world, and obviously the gamers who are competing in this competition. Do you have a message for them from International Medical Corps?
Well, certainly I do. More than a message, in fact. Well, first of all, continue enjoying what you do. I think that's quite important, especially during this time period where we see, millions and millions of people around the world going through mental health crisis. And secondly, there are, like I mentioned earlier on, we see millions and millions of people suffering either because of war or conflict or the impact of climate change on their lives, or because of, very often all these crises coming together in certain countries. And it requires, a massive level of effort from the, civil societies and humanitarian organizations to go out there and support those communities. We would not be able to do it if we are not supported in our work. We need support. We need to have access to funding streams so that we can prioritize, working with communities that are going through these crises. So my message would be, continue following our work, continue supporting us, and as well as enjoy what you guys are doing. I think it's a great work for a great cause.
Well, Javid, thank you so much for joining me in this interview. Best of luck with everything that International Medical Corps are trying to accomplish in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you very much for having me, and much appreciated.